The rain started before dawn, thin and silver against the gray skyline of Seattle. Daniel Harper was already awake. Being a single dad meant mornings weren't optional. By 6:30, he had packed his 8-year-old son Liam's lunch, signed a permission slip he'd almost forgotten, and burned the first batch of toast. Again, Liam laughed, because that's what Liam did. He found joy in small disasters. "Dad, you're thinking too much," Liam said, swinging his backpack over his shoulder. Daniel forced a smile. He did that a lot lately. After dropping Liam at school, Daniel followed the same routine he'd built since his wife passed 3 years earlier. Coffee from the corner shop, a brisk walk to clear his head, then off to the construction site where he managed a crew. That was when he first noticed her. She stood near the bus stop across from the cafe, always at exactly 7:15 a.m. A young woman, mid-20s maybe, dark hair tucked under a knit cap, worn denim jacket, hands curled tightly around herself like she was bracing against more than the cold. The first morning, he only glanced. The second morning, he noticed she didn't board the bus. By the third, he realized she wasn't waiting for one at all. She was just standing there, watching, not in a threatening way. Not exactly, just still, focused on him. Daniel told himself it was coincidence. Until the fourth morning, when she stepped forward as he left the cafe. "You drop this," she said softly, holding out a $5 bill. He checked his wallet. "Nothing missing. It's not mine," he replied. Her fingers trembled slightly before she pulled it back. "Sorry." Her voice carried something heavy, like regret layered under nerves. From then on, it became a ritual. He'd see her. She'd hover near the bus stop. Some mornings she'd speak, small things. "Your son likes dinosaurs." Daniel froze the first time she said that. "You've seen us at the park," she clarified quickly. "He talks about them loudly." That was true. Liam did love dinosaurs loudly. Still, something unsettled him. Yet there was something else too. Familiarity. The following week, it rained harder than usual. Seattle rain that soaked through jackets and patients alike. She stood there again, shivering. Without thinking, Daniel approached. "You're going to get sick," he said. "At least stand under the cafe awning." She hesitated like she didn't believe she was allowed to accept kindness. But she followed. He bought her a coffee. The first time she wrapped her hands around the cup, her eyes closed briefly, as if warmth itself was a foreign luxury. "Thank you, Daniel." He stiffened. "I never told you my name." She swallowed. "The barista did." "Reasonable. Probably." "What's yours?" he asked. She looked down at the steam rising from her drink. "Anna." It wasn't until weeks later that he realized that wasn't her real name. It became routine after that. Coffee. A few words. Sometimes silence. She never asked for money. Never crossed boundaries. But she watched him with an intensity that felt less like attraction and more like searching. One morning, she handed him a small drawing. It was crumpled at the edges, clearly old. A child's drawing of a house, a tall stick figure man, and a smaller figure holding his hand. In faded crayon, barely legible. "Me and Daddy." Daniel's stomach dropped. He stared at it. "I found it," she said quickly. "At a thrift store. Thought your son might like it." But her eyes shimmered with something deeper than a lie. "I think you should go," he said gently. She nodded, and left. The rainy day that changed everything came in November. Wind tore through the streets. The cafe had closed early due to a power outage. Daniel hurried toward his truck when he saw her, not at the bus stop this time, but standing directly in his path. She looked different, not nervous, resolved. "You don't remember me," she said. Daniel's pulse quickened. "We've talked every day for 2 months." "No," she whispered. "Before that." Lightning cracked across the sky. "I used to live next door to you," she continued. 12 years ago. Before you moved. Before everything." His mind scrambled. 12 years ago, he'd lived in a small rental house outside the city. Back when life was messy but whole. Back when his wife was alive. Back when he coached Little League for neighborhood kids. There had been a girl. Quiet, thin, always sitting on the porch steps of the blue house next door. Her father drank, yelled, sometimes worse. Daniel had stepped in more than once. He remembered now, calling the police after hearing shouting. Letting the girl sit at his kitchen table while waiting for social services. Teaching her how to ride a bike in the empty parking lot nearby. Her name had been Elena, he breathed. Tears spilled down her face. "You told me once that not all men leave," she said, voice breaking. "That some stay, that some fight for their kids." The memory hit like a tidal wave. Elena had disappeared suddenly. Her father had taken her out of state before custody could change hands. Daniel had tried to find out where she went, but life, work, his own growing family, had pulled him back. I aged out of the system at 18, she said. I came back to Seattle last year. I looked for you. I didn't know how to just show up. So you watched, he said quietly. She nodded. I needed to see if you were still the man I remembered. Before I said anything, Daniel felt something fracture inside him, not from fear, but from the weight of forgotten responsibility. I thought you forgot me, she whispered. I thought maybe I imagined that you cared. Rain soaked through both of them. Elena, he said firmly, stepping closer, I never would have forgotten you on purpose. She gave a small, broken laugh. You kind of did. He flinched. Because she wasn't wrong. Life had moved forward, and she had been left in a chapter he'd closed without realizing someone was still living inside it. I don't need money, she rushed to say. Or anything like that. I just needed you to know, you saved me. Back then, you made me believe fathers could be different. Daniel swallowed hard. You come back every morning, he said slowly. Not because you need help. She shook her head. I come back because when I see you with your son, I remember what safe looked like. Silence hung between them. Then Daniel made a decision that felt less like charity and more like correction. Come to dinner, he said. Her eyes widened. Liam's making spaghetti tonight. Badly, he added. She hesitated. I don't want to intrude. You're not a stranger, he said gently. You never were. That evening, Elena sat at their small kitchen table, hands folded nervously just like they used to be years ago. Liam eyed her curiously. Dad says you knew him when he had more hair, Liam announced. Elena laughed, really laughed this time. Much more hair. Daniel felt something warm settle in his chest. Not guilt, not obligation, something like restoration. After dinner, as Liam excitedly showed off his dinosaur collection, Elena lingered in the doorway. I meant what I said, she told Daniel quietly. You changed my life. He shook his head. You did that. I just showed up. She studied him for a moment. You always show up, she said. And this time, when she left, it wasn't to stand across the street in the rain. It was with a promise to come back tomorrow. Not as a watcher, not as a ghost from a forgotten chapter, but as family. And for the first time in years, Daniel realized something important. Sometimes the past doesn't return to haunt you. Sometimes it returns to remind you who you were. 1500 WAD.